Tomorrow, you might wake up in a world where your own family could decide your fate based on who you love. Where a single rumor about your private life could erase everything you've built. Where children were molded from birth to obey without question. You think you understand ancient Rome? Think again. This wasn't just an empire of conquest. It was a civilization built on absolute control. Where every personal choice was policed, and every whisper could be your end. For over 500 years, Rome perfected a system of surveillance unlike any other. One that reached into homes, bedrooms, and even thoughts. I've studied crumbling scrolls, unearthed artifacts from Pompeii, and deciphered laws most historians shy away from. What I found will shatter your view of the ancient world, and make you cherish the freedoms you take for granted. Let's descend through 7 layers of Rome's hidden brutality. Laws that turned private acts into capital offenses. Women punished for showing emotion. Sacred priestesses sentenced to suffocation for breaking oaths. Emperors who turned the young into disposable servants. A society where dominance meant survival and submission meant ruin. And the most chilling part? They carved their rules into stone, worshipping control as divine. The first rule, your life hinged on perception. In Rome, reputation wasn't just about honor, it was life or death. If you were seen as passive in private matters, you lost everything. Your rank, your rights, even your name. This wasn't gossip, it was law. Take Julius Caesar. Even as he conquered nations, his enemies never let him escape a rumor from his youth. Decades later, soldiers still chanted mocking verses about him in the streets. Rome didn't just shame, it legislated behavior. The Lex Scantinia made certain private roles punishable by exile, fines, or execution. One accusation could erase a senator's legacy, literally. Names were chiseled from monuments. Families disgraced. Lives destroyed over whispers. The hierarchy was absolute. The emperor could dominate anyone. Senators could dominate all but their equals. Citizens ruled over servants and outsiders. Slaves had no right to refuse. Break this order, and the penalties were merciless. Wealthy men stripped of status. Wives forced to abandon husbands. Children disinherited overnight, all for stepping out of line. Rome didn't just conquer lands, it conquered minds. To be unmanly was to be defeated, feminized, worthless. Politics. Business. Even religion revolved around this brutal code. For women, pleasure was a crime. Now imagine being punished for enjoying intimacy. In Rome, a woman's silence wasn't just expected, it was law. Any sign of passion could mean execution. Augustus, the first emperor, made it legal for fathers to kill their daughters for immorality. His own child, Julia, was exiled for attending parties where she dared to express desire. The ruler of the world buried his daughter's reputation over rumors of enjoyment. This was Rome's true legacy, not marble and glory, but fear carved into every heart. But the horror didn't stop there. Rome's so-called medical experts spun a web of myths about female desire, not to heal, but to control. They claimed a woman's natural responses could unleash madness, hysteria, or even demonic possession. The most respected physicians of the era, like Sorin of Ephesus, taught that pleasure caused the womb to wander through the body, inducing insanity. The cures were nothing short of torture. Break time equals 300 ms/. Ice baths for hours to cool passion. Potions laced with mercury and lead, guaranteed to poison the senses. Fumigation rituals where women inhaled toxic fumes to calm their bodies. Wealthy women paid fortunes for these treatments, essentially paying to be numbed into submission. Take the case of Severina, a noblewoman whose story survives in fragments. After her husband complained she showed too much enjoyment on their wedding night, she was handed over to Rome's finest healers. Their prescription? Dawn ice baths. Forced consumption of bitter herbs that induced vomiting. Bloodletting to drain passion. Lead powder rubbed on her skin to suppress sensation. After 6 months of agony, Severina emerged cured, trained to lie motionless, silent, and empty. The doctors declared it a triumph. The ultimate hypocrisy. While women were punished for feeling anything, Roman men boasted openly of their conquests. Senators bragged in public. Emperors commissioned statues celebrating their prowess. But a wife who dared to smile in private? That was a death sentence. Women developed secret survival tactics, passed down like forbidden knowledge. Think of household chores during the act. Bite your tongue if pleasure stirs. Breathe slow. Stay still. Disappear. Generations of Roman women learned to detach from their own bodies. Not for pleasure, but for survival. The law saw women as property. The concept of consent didn't exist. A woman's body belonged first to her father, then her husband. Any hint of desire outside male control was considered theft. One chilling legal case tells of Claudia, accused of adultery, not because of any act, but because she was seen laughing too much with a male friend. Her crime? Appearing flushed in his presence. The punishment? Divorced by her husband. Disowned by her father. Her children taken away. Religion justified the cruelty. Priests claimed female enjoyment angered the gods, causing disasters. Crop failures? Blame wives who felt too much. Military defeats? Punish women for their desires. The Vestal Virgins, Rome's most sacred priestesses, were held up as the ideal. Women who wanted nothing. Felt nothing. Were nothing. Why did Rome fear female desire? Because desire meant agency. And in an empire built on domination, a woman's choice was the ultimate threat. Rome didn't just rule with swords and laws, it invaded minds, bedrooms, and bodies. Every wife was watched. Every daughter policed. Every whisper could be a death warrant. This wasn't morality. It was terror. The Vestal Virgins, Rome's most sacred victims. Now imagine being chosen at age 6 to serve a goddess, knowing that one slip, one moment of human weakness, meant being buried alive. The Vestals held immense power. They guarded Rome's sacred flame, handled state secrets, enjoyed freedoms no other women had. But the price? 30 years of absolute purity, or death. The execution method was designed to maximize horror. Stripped of sacred robes, dressed as a bride, because death was her marriage to the underworld. Bound, silenced, and paraded through Rome as crowds watched in forced silence. Lowered into an underground chamber with just enough bread, water, and oil to prolong suffering. Buried alive, left to suffocate in the dark while Rome moved on above her. The state even pretended it wasn't murder, just sending her to the gods. The case of Cornelia. After 20 years of faithful service, Vestal Cornelia was accused of impurity, with no evidence. Emperor Domitian needed a scapegoat for his military failures. So he declared the gods demanded vengeance. As they dressed her for burial, she cried, "How can Caesar call me impure when Rome triumphed under my watch?" It didn't matter. She was sealed underground. Lovers of Vestals met a worse fate. Any man caught with a Vestal was beaten to death in public. His body reduced to pulp while crowds cheered. When nobleman Marcus Antonius was discovered exchanging letters with Vestal Marcia, his punishment was merciless. Stripped naked in the forum. Flayed with rods for hours until his bones showed. Marcia forced to watch before her own burial. The examinations were invasive humiliation. Vestals endured regular purity checks, where priests claimed they could detect sin through hair texture, skin tone, weight changes, too pale, guilty conscience, too flushed, secret passions. Rome didn't just demand virginity. It demanded the obliteration of desire itself. This was the real Rome. Not marble and glory, but fear carved into flesh. Every law, every ritual, every whispered lesson, all designed to control what could not be conquered. You think modern purity culture is strict? Rome turned suppression into state-sanctioned slaughter. And its shadow still lingers today. The sacred terror of Rome's Vestal Virgins. Imagine being taken from your family at age 6. Told your body no longer belongs to you. That a single touch, a whispered word, even an uncontrolled thought could mean being buried alive. This was the fate of Rome's Vestal Virgins. Women worshipped as divine protectors, yet trapped in a nightmare of surveillance. The inescapable watch. Every Vestal lived under constant scrutiny. Guards followed their every move. Slaves reported their whispers. Priests analyzed their expressions. A laugh too loud? Suspicion. A glance too long? Accusation. A smile at the wrong person? Trial for impurity. Even family ties offered no protection. When Claudia, a Vestal, was targeted by her brother's political rival, she faced a public inquisition, her most private moments dragged into the forum. She only escaped death by a miracle, the sacred flames flaring on command. How many others burned for less? The selection, a theft of childhood. Girls as young as 6 were ripped from their families and indoctrinated. Your purity keeps Rome standing. A single desire will doom us all. For 30 years, they lived in gilded cages told. Plagues? Their fault for impure thoughts. Defeats in war? The gods punishing their weakness. The psychological toll was catastrophic. Fragments of their letters survive. I dream of the earth swallowing me whole. I check my reflection for sin before the priests do. The release that was no escape. After 3 decades of terror, Vestals were freed, but broken. Too old for marriage by Roman standards. Too strange, too hollow, after a lifetime of enforced numbness. Rome didn't just kill the guilty. It murdered the souls of the innocent. The twisted logic of divine protection. Priests claimed, virgin blood held magic power. A Vestal's breath could ward off disaster. But this power was fragile, destroyed by the slightest humanity. For 1,000 years, Rome fed its young women into this machine of control. Until a Christian emperor finally ended it in 394 AD. A millennium of silent screams. A millennium of girls suffocating in the dark. The emperor's bedroom, where children became toys. Now imagine a world where the most powerful man on earth could legally claim your child as a servant. Where infants were trained like pets. And human suffering became imperial entertainment. Rome's emperors didn't just break morals. They rewrote them. Tiberius, the island of horrors. On Capri, Tiberius built a nightmare playground. Little fish, children conditioned from infancy to serve his whims in water. Those who resisted? Drowned in the same pools they were trained in. Tight rosebuds, boys at the cusp of puberty. Hunted, collected, discarded. The infrastructure was chillingly efficient. Procurement agents scoured the empire. Trainers, medics, accountants maintained the system. Official records called the victims theatrical supplies. Caligula, the god of cruelty. Caligula turned abuse into statecraft. Forced senators to watch his violations of their own wives. Auctioned a noblewoman's purity in front of her husband. Declared his sisters divine, demanding worship of their exploitation. His logic: if gods do it, why can't I? Nero, the theater of suffering. Nero's depravity was performance art. Married a castrated boy, dressed him as his dead wife. Beast games, where he, clad in animal skins, attacked bound victims before crowds. His golden house featured rotating bedrooms. Hidden passages. Themed chambers of torment. The system outlived the monsters. When one emperor fell, the next inherited the machinery. Procurement networks. Training facilities. Records of victims. Even Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher emperor, failed to dismantle it fully. His own son restored every horror. The arena of flesh, Rome's most twisted sport. You think modern society is obsessed with performance? Rome turned intimacy into a blood sport. The Empress Versus, the professional. Messalina, wife of Emperor Claudius, once competed against Rome's most famed courtesan in an endurance contest. Judges tallied each encounter. Doctors stood by for injuries. The crowd bet on the outcome. The courtesan quit at 23. Messalina, fueled by pride and possibly drugs, pushed to 25. And demanded more. Gladiators of the bedroom. This wasn't an isolated event. Rome had formal competitions. Stamina trials in gladiator schools. Public contests with prizes and rankings. Losers faced humiliation, enslavement, or death. This was Rome. Not marble and poetry, but flesh traded, broken, and buried. A civilization that worshipped control and sacrificed humanity to maintain it. You think modern power corrupts? Rome institutionalized its horrors and called it divine right. Rome's darkest secrets, when intimacy became a weapon of empire. The Roman Empire perfected something far more sinister than military conquest. They weaponized intimacy itself. What began as social customs hardened into a system of control. So pervasive it shaped every Roman life from birth to death. The games Rome played. Rome's intimate competitions weren't private affairs. They were state-sponsored spectacles with professional trainers who prepared athletes for months. Elaborate scoring systems judging technique, endurance, and crowd appeal. Dangerous performance enhancers. From mercury-laced potions to crushed beetle powders that caused heart failure. Public arenas where citizens placed bets, as competitors risked permanent injury. The infamous Night of 25 saw Empress Messalina outlast Rome's top courtesan in a marathon session that lasted until dawn. Winners gained wealth and status. Losers, often slaves with no choice, faced broken bodies and social ruin. The spintree, Rome's living instruction manuals. Rome's most disturbing profession were the spintree, human demonstration tools. Selected as children for extreme physical traits. Trained in specialized academies where half died during instruction. Forced to perform impossible contortions that caused lifelong disabilities. routinely hired by noble families to educate teenage brides before their weddings. These human teaching aids developed complete psychological dissociation. Many couldn't form normal relationships after years of public demonstrations. A civilization built on symbols. Rome's obsession wasn't hidden. It was carved in stone. Phallic street signs directed citizens to entertainment districts. 6-foot Priapus statues guarded family gardens, painted bright red. Bakeries sold bread in explicit shapes for good fortune. Soldiers marched with amulets believed to ensure battlefield dominance. Even Rome's mighty legions carried these symbols to the edges of empire. Hadrian's wall features carved phalluses every 300 paces. As protective charms. The rot within. Rome didn't fall to invaders. It collapsed from moral decay. Emperors who treated citizens as playthings. Women systematically traumatized into numbness. Children exposed to adult worlds before puberty. A society that turned human connection into performance. The historian Tacitus warned. Lust became policy. Cruelty, entertainment. And nothing was forbidden to those who ruled. Echoes in modern shadows. We see Rome's legacy in performance anxiety replacing genuine intimacy. The gamification of human relationships. Early sexualization of children through media. Powerful men still facing few consequences. The poet Juvenal's question haunts us still. Who will guard the guardians themselves? History's warning is clear. Civilizations that turn intimacy into either weapon or spectacle always destroy themselves from within. Rome's stones still whisper this truth. If we dare to listen, share this revelation, before we're doomed to repeat what even the mighty Romans couldn't survive.